All right, let's jump right into it. Today, we're looking at how the human thyroid walks this incredibly dangerous microscopic tightrope. We're going to explore the remarkably fine line between vital biological balance, malignant hijacking, and the absolute cutting edge of targeted therapeutics. I mean, think about it. What if your body actually required a highly toxic, destructive chemical just to keep you alive? It sounds totally backwards, right? But this bizarre biological anomaly is exactly the mystery we're going to unpack today. Section 1. The thyroid's toxic secret, a biological anomaly. So, the human thyroid gland, it's this beautiful yet incredibly fragile structure right in your neck. And to keep you going, it basically has to become a master of oxidative homeostasis. It's constantly juggling this deadly oxidative stress with its normal day-to-day functions. And honestly, if it drops the ball even a little bit, the consequences are huge. Because here's the crazy part. Unlike practically every other organ in your body that's constantly scrambling to neutralize reactive oxygen species, the thyroid, it actually wants them. It actively requires a massive payload of toxic hydrogen peroxide. It uses this toxic currency as the essential oxidizing agent to synthesize your vital T4 and T3 hormones. The stakes here are just astronomical. If the thyroid mismanages this payload, you're either looking at a total production failure, which we know as hypothyroidism, or it drives this toxic leakage that can literally spark tumor growth. Moving on to Section 2, Inside the Hormone Factory, Safe Handling of a Toxic Currency. Okay, let's step inside the factory floor of a healthy thyrocyte. The level of organization here is just stunning. Down at the basolateral membrane, you've got this critical door, the NIS, or sodium/iodide symporter, pulling iodine in from the blood. And then, way up at the apical membrane, you have the DUAX2 engine. This engine is carefully manufacturing our toxic currency, the H2O2, exactly where it's needed, keeping it safely away from the cell's delicate internal machinery. It operates with literal surgical precision in 4 steps. First, iodine gets pulled in through that NIS symporter. Step 2, it transits upward through pendrin channels. Step 3, at the exact same time, that DUAX2 engine fires up to generate the toxic H2O2. And finally, Step 4, the two meet up and thyroid peroxidase uses the H2O2 to oxidize the iodine, giving you your essential hormones. It's an absolute masterpiece of biological engineering. But every good factory needs an emergency stop button, right? Well, enter the Wolff-Chaikoff effect. If a huge rush of systemic iodine floods the system, it tips the scales. High levels of iodo-lipids kick in and actively suppress TPO and NIS activity. It's an intentional factory shutdown to prevent a toxic overdrive. Thyroid cells live for about 7 years on average, and this incredibly precise oxidative management is exactly what keeps them from destroying themselves. Section 3. The rogue engine awakens. From health to malignancy. All right, to really grasp how this system gets hijacked, we need to compare 2 totally different oxidase engines. On the left, we've got DUAX2, our highly regulated clock-punching physiological worker. It just wants to synthesize healthy hormones, and it patiently waits for specific activation signals to turn on. On the right, though, we have NOx4. And NOx4 is a rogue saboteur. It's constitutively active, meaning it's permanently stuck in the on position, relentlessly turning out dangerous reactive oxygen species with absolutely no off switch. Now, check out the physical separation between these 2 enzymes, because this is crucial for understanding the pathology. DUAX2 is safely tucked up at the apical plasma membrane, tossing its toxic H2O2 outside the main body of the cell. But NOx4, it's located intracellularly. It's embedded right there in the endoplasmic reticulum and the mitochondria. It's literally generating toxic hydrogen peroxide from inside the cell's most vulnerable areas. Before we talk cancer, let's just quickly look at what happens if that healthy DUOX2 pathway breaks down. If a mutation stops DUOX2 from maturing, it never makes it to that apical membrane. It gets trapped in the endoplasmic reticulum. And the result? The whole factory stalls. Without H2O2 at the top, TPO can't oxidize iodine, which directly causes a loss of function condition we know as congenital hypothyroidism. But let's see how this transforms into a total oncology nightmare. When a patient gets a BRAF V600E mutation, which by the way shows up in up to 60% of conventional papillary thyroid carcinomas, it severely upregulates the TGF-beta pathway, and that causes a massive induction of our rogue saboteur, NOx4. Suddenly the cell is just drowning in continuous untriggered ROS.
This runaway train damages DNA, kicks off epithelial, mesenchymal transition, and even recruits tumor-associated macrophages to rapidly accelerate the cancer's invasion. Section 4. The malignancy switch. Trapped in a sabotage loop. So now the cell is trapped in this terrifying, self-amplifying engine. As the tumor rapidly grows, it actually outpaces its own blood supply, creating cellular hypoxia. This stabilizes a factor called HIF-1 alpha in the nucleus. And what does HIF-1 alpha do? It directly targets and cranks up even more NOx4 expression. Then NOx4 drives a metabolic shift, the infamous Warburg effect, forcing the cell to build biomass entirely through glycolysis, which, you guessed it, produces even more ROS, further stabilizing HIF-1 alpha. It is a vicious and escapable survival loop.
And here we see the inverse switch of thyroid malignancy. Look at the dynamic between these two pathways. As the rogue NOx4, that's the orange line, skyrockets to drive aggressive growth, it epigenetically silences the cyan line, the vital NIS symporter. By shutting down NIS, the tumor literally strips itself of the ability to absorb iodine. And this is a clinical tragedy, because as the cancer spreads, it becomes completely invisible and entirely untreatable by traditional radioactive iodine therapies. The endgame of this hostile takeover is a completely rewritten cellular identity. You start with a healthy thyrocyte, high NIS expression, perfectly regulated ROS. But look at the advanced papillary thyroid cancer cell. It's gone dark, the NIS door is welded shut, it's totally reliant on that constitutive NOx4, and its metabolism has completely shifted over to anaerobic glycolysis.
All right, Section 5, Hacking the Cell, the Rescue Mission.
So, how do we fight back? For these advanced radioiodine refractory cancers, the clinical holy grail is redifferentiation. We essentially have to hack the cell, forcing it to remember its original identity and pry open that locked NIS door. Scientists are doing this using targeted therapeutics like retinoic acid, which binds to nuclear receptors to re-stimulate iodide uptake. But even cooler, they're deploying HDAC inhibitors like valproic acid. These act like tiny molecular lockpicks. They block histone deacetylases to literally relax the tightly wound DNA strands, letting transcription factors sneak in and turn that silenced NIS promoter back on.
Which brings us to Section 6, the future of smart bombs, Trojan horse therapeutics. This is where things get truly sci-fi. Scientists are brilliantly turning cancer's own biology against itself, and not just in the thyroid, but in non-thyroidal tumors too. By linking the NIS gene to tissue-specific promoters, like the PSA promoter for prostate cancer, they use vectors to trick completely unrelated tumors into expressing the NIS symporter. The cancer cell is basically tricked into building a door for its own destruction. Once that extrathyroidal tumor expresses NIS, boom, we can deliver standard, highly effective radioiodine payloads right into the heart of the tumor mass. Once we forced that NIS door open, whether we're talking about a redifferentiated thyroid cancer or a newly transfected prostate cancer, we get this incredible diagnostic and therapeutic bifurcation, basically a two-for-one deal. First, for vision, we use iodine-124. Pair that with a PET scan, and this positron-emitting isotope gives us an ultra-high-resolution, pinpoint map of micrometastases anywhere in the body. Then, for the destruction phase, we simply swap to iodine-131. Because NIS pulls the isotope directly inside the cell, that localized beta radiation precisely obliterates the tumor from the inside out. It really is a breathtaking scientific achievement, isn't it? Moving from a fragile biological anomaly all the way to targeted genetic warfare. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. By mastering the thyroid's dangerous balancing act and hijacking its toxic secret, could this Trojan horse method one day become the foundational key to unlocking a universal cure for all cancers? It's an absolutely incredible frontier, and man, this science is moving faster than ever.